Welcome back, everybody, to The Last of Us spoiler-heavy reviews here on my channel. This is episode 4. I'm Kristian Harloff. Thanks for joining us, by the way. If you're brand new to the channel, you've never been here before, you need to show a little class. And how do you show a little class? You show a little class by subscribing to the channel. We're almost at 65,000. You guys can get us. If you show a little, just an ounce, you can get us to 65 and you can be part of the class brigade. That's a new thing. I don't know if it's going to stick. Probably not. Anyway, we got ourselves a spoiler-heavy episode here, and it really goes into, I think this is, to me, again, a big pushback for some of the comments I saw on last week's episode, how some people thought it was a filler. I thought this episode completely negates that it was a filler. And people go, what are you talking about? This is the reason why this episode wasn't a filler. There was a lot going on between Joel and Ellie, and then there was the full episode, and they got into some action, and there's a lot of stuff just like the video game, and all that is true. However, the dynamic that was set by both Bill and Frank into what the mission is in general for Joel and what he needs to do and how he needs to start to look at, I mean, he refers to Ellie in this episode as cargo, but I think he's starting to even battle himself on that, and you can see the dynamic really start to blossom. And I think that also has a lot to do with, you can see, we learned as an audience last week that this isn't just a apocalyptic, no chance, everyone just needs to be out for themselves and that's it. There's a chance for hope if you allow it to, and there's a chance to live a life in this world if you allow yourself to, and you can find that purpose. And I think that coupled with this works really, really well. So getting into this in general, you start off right away with Ellie, and Bella Ramsey's doing some fantastic stuff in this show already. And the writing in the show is allowing all the actors to just shine, but the idea that she's got herself this gun, she starts kind of looking at it, practicing it, trying to figure out, am I ever going to use this thing? We find out the answer to that a little later on, obviously, but like, She's stole it. She's hid it from Joel, and she figures, I'm gonna have to use this thing. She's not wrong, even though she kind of went against the listen to me on everything type thing. He said, don't use it. But I was so nervous when she was doing all this stuff too. I mean, obviously nothing was gonna happen to her, but like, I didn't know if she was gonna fire off a bullet into the mirror and all this stuff. But she seemed to know what the hell she was doing for herself. So, and this is the scene though, man, like where you start to get the dynamic that were apparently people fell in love with the game. And as I've mentioned to people, if you're brand new and you're following this for the first time, you just stumbled across a spoiler review and you're watching, who's this asshole? I am playing the game up until I don't get spoiled in the show, if that makes sense. And I know there's a lot of liberties and there's a lot of things that they've changed. I know last week they changed a bunch of stuff, and I know in this one, instead of going to Philly, they go to Kansas City. They said as much again in the post thing at the very end of the show that I've been watching. But I've been watching things like, or playing the game rather, up until certain points. So, and that dynamic of Joel and Ellie has always been talked about so much, and it really starts to form in this one. And I think that as much as Joel tries to be, he is the bit of Joel that we saw in episode 1 with his daughter really pops through a handful of times in this episode, and you see it, and you start to see it through. I mean, you saw it a little bit in the conversation last week as they were walking to Bill and Frank's place, but really in this episode, and a lot with that car ride. You're taking a car ride with somebody that you don't really know that well, or your acquaintances with, and you learn a lot about somebody in a long drive. And they do as much in this, and I love this. And what I also like about these scenes and what they do here is you learn so much more about the world. They set up how it looks wonderfully, and I think that they needed to, because I think the mistake a lot of people are making are just comparing this right away to The Walking Dead, right? And saying, well, Walking Dead did it this way. Well, they're two completely different shows, and this show is proving exactly why. And I don't think it's fair for people to be like, well, this is so much better than Walking Dead. It's like they're different shows, because what I like inside of the first few episodes or first few seasons of Walking Dead was you could be anywhere and a walker could pop out. And it was like, oh no! And even though you found pretty easier ways for them to kill them down the line, but it was when the series first started, you were like, oh, where are these things? I like that they're not popping up everywhere. The infected aren't popping up everywhere, and it's not really about that. They're out there, and they mentioned, and I love the fact he's like, yeah, the infected is not what I'm worried about. They can't make their way out here. And he says at one point, the fungus isn't that smart. And like, they tell you things within sentences of how the world works. They explain the rules and they explain what can happen, because everybody, you're just accustomed to it watching shows like The Walking Dead or anything. You're like, oh, is there going to be like somebody infected? And they're like, no, not this far out. That's not what we're worried about. That's not what this show is about. They are there. They are part of it. And I think this is something that I really enjoyed about the way that they kind of set it up. And also the difference in comparison of the person who was born into this world after the disease and someone who was born before it. Because when Joel's talking to Ellie about like gasoline and how it works, and basically like, yeah, it's all watered down now, but the way that this is working is we'll be able to drive a couple hours or whatever it is, and then we'll have to pull over and find some new gas. And he's like, back in the day, we could have taken this thing for like 8 hours. And this is, he's doing the gas, and he thinks he knows the terminology, but he doesn't know the pure terminology. She gives him shit for it. We see the relationship again. And then she pulls out this joke book, which is where we really get to see Joel. We really get to see him, because they said it, I think, and this is what I picked up when I was watching it, and then they confirmed it as I was watching it. Like, he's trying to put on this face. He's like, I don't like these stupid jokes, but he did, because it's the brilliant delivery by Pedro Pascal when he's like, you can go wait in the car if you want. Like, I have these conversations with my daughter. You know what I mean? Like, I love these silly jokes and the things that you bust each other's chops, and that's what they're doing. They're forming it. They're forming this relationship. She gets a kick out of it. But she knows she's learning his personality, learning what he likes, and it starts to play throughout the entire episode, obviously, as they build this bond together. And I love this face by Bella Ramsey, where she's like, huh? It's like every open mic comedian ready. I got a zinger here. I got one for you. And she knows how bad they are, but she knows that she wants to see him crack. And when she sees him crack, she digs it and she likes it. And that's the face. She's like, go wait in the car. And they take off, and that sets it up. And it doesn't stop though, too, because as they're in the car, and they're in that car, the car driving for Bill's car. Now this is plucked directly right out of the game. There's a side-by-side video I think someone sent me recently that is this scene, and it's pretty much shot for shot. Dialogue's pretty consistent, and I think that's why I love this perfect blend. Like the creator of the game, I think it was a creator of the game of the showrunner, I can't remember, one of the two, came out and said, look, what do you want me to do? You want me to make a total shot-by-shot game? Show from the game? Who wants that? It's an adaptation. It's being able to build off of that and understand like that. That's having the creator involved is the best part to it, right? And that's like I always, anytime I bring up an adaptation or anything too, I always bring up Knights of the Old Republic every single time. I try to, because do I want an exact storytelling of the exact game of everything that I know from it? No, you can build off of it. You build around it. You keep it consistent to what we loved about it, but you build around it, and you take things and you can build off the stuff that worked. And again, that's what's having the creator involved in it allows you to do that, right? But this scene, though, this is a particular scene that they said, we can take this straight from the game, put it in there, and it's a funny scene, and it works. And it really builds off the dynamic of the two characters and allows you to know more about them. It allows you to know more about Ellie's character, where she can crack jokes. She plays it. She's like, oh, why are the pages stuck together? He's like, the awkward father at this point. And she's like, I'm fucking with you, man. And they toss the thing out the window, whatever, too. And they listen to Hank Williams on the way through. But this whole scene was really well done between the two of them. And I watched recently. So as you know, I'm been involved with Josh Harwood's podcast, and even beforehand I was listening to his show all the time. He's just such a brilliant interviewer, and he gets the best guests. He had on Bella Ramsey, and they talked about, they were told not to play the game. And I think that Bella Ramsey said at one point she snuck it in later on after, whether they were done filming or however it was. But this is probably one of the reasons I would assume that they told them not to, because they wanted to tell them what the scene was, let them do it on their own, and then see what they could do, like basically the same way they would tell the actors who were playing the characters in the game, like, this is the scene, and it's almost, to them, it's original, like they had never seen it before. And I could be making all of that up. Maybe they both did watch the scene beforehand. I have no idea. But I would assume from listening to Josh's interview that Bella hadn't seen that scene leading up to this. And again, what they do so well in this, and I mentioned it in my instant reaction to this show, I love how this show is shot. It's beautifully shot. It's just really gorgeous to look at. But besides that, in what they do inside these shots, they set you up to what this world is, right? Like how everything's kind of overgrown. There's farmland. There's all these things. There are cows running around, right? Like in again, Walking Dead, different show. Cows are all dead. Zombies or walkers have found them and eaten them. The cows are walking around. They're fine. Like, where is it? How come people haven't gotten them to get more food? I don't know. There's questions I'm sure that will be answered. But they set this up as they're driving through and they're on their way to Kansas City. There's things in this. I love this throwback to last week's episode where, there was that whole line that I loved when Frank says to Bill when he first meets him, or vice versa. Bill says to Frank, he said, "This isn't an Arby's. It's not a free meal." He's like, "Arby's isn't free. It's a restaurant. It's not free meals." And they give you an Arby's quick cameo. The aerial shot of the car going through the town was gorgeous. The tanks and whatever the hell was going on, and what happened here. Like all of these military, like tanks and cars and all of it, RVs are all just abandoned. And what happened here? Like we'll never know. We don't need to. It just shows that shit went down. And the shot of Ellie just kind of looking at all of it, she's never seen all of it. She's the first time in her car, and she's on the way through, and this is her first big road trip, and she's just seeing the world, and she's seeing it like through Tess and Joel's eyes, really. The way R.I.P. Tess, but the way that they kind of saw everything, and now she's kind of going on that adventure. And that this shot too, it's like you just miss it, but the train that went off the rails and just sitting there, and it's like all this history with just these few shots. There's so much history in everything happening here in 20 years of this chaos that's been going down. And that's just the way the world is. And it's like they don't have to go into a full explanation of it. Maybe they will, maybe they won't. I would say they won't. But it's there, and it's open, this history of things that happen. And he finally decided to just kind of pull off to the side, realizing, again, going back to what Joel had said earlier of, look, man, we only have so much time in the car with the gas, and plus the fact of us getting tired. So they pull off, and they go deep into the woods, and he knows, like he just knows shit can go down. And this was another great line delivery by Pedro Pascal. When she cooks, she says, "What the hell am I eating here?" And he goes, "You're eating a 20-year-old Chef Boyardee." He's like, this, what did she say? She said something along the this guy's great, or this guy's the best. And he says, I don't disagree, or I don't, whatever the line is, he says, I don't disagree, or I agree, or whatever it is. It's the delivery of it. And it's so like, just to the fact, it's just serious, but he's also enjoying the meal. I thought it was a great moment. I thought it was a really great moment between them that they have here as they're eating and they're having conversations again. And she's just being a, 15-year-old kid and being Ellie, and he's still trying to be hardened, but he's having these conversations, and they're talking about, and she's like, "I'm going to light a fire." He's like, "You better not light a fire." So why do you think? She's like, "Because," and this is where we learned about it. She's like, "Oh, because of the infect." He's like, "No, they're not going to be able to come out here." And she's like, "People?" And it's like, he's just blunt with her, and she's just like, "Well, what do they want? They're going to steal from us? They're going to steal a lot more than just that." She's like, "Oh, okay, I get it." And it sets up the scene that, again, she tells him a joke at the campfire. I can't really see too much about it in this particular shot, but she tells him the joke. He cracks a smile, just go to sleep, and he's waiting. And he kind of waits guard all night because he knows, because he's not trusting it. And he trusts his gut to wait, and it's the right move. And again, kind of foreshadowing what he doesn't do later on and how we end the episode. But this coffee scene when he's got it shows you the Chef Boyardee thing, the coffee thing. It shows you like how the stuff that the person who lived through it just wants to crave that again, just wants to crave it one more time of what it used to be like. I don't care if it's 20 years old. I don't care if it's watered down coffee. I don't care if the gas is is also watered down and we have to drive a couple hours as opposed to 8 or 10 hours. It's a piece of the old world and those types of things. And even in the conversation, the previous one, talking about traveling and planes, and Joel is reliving this stuff again because who's he talking to about it before Ellie? Because she didn't. Everybody else that he was hanging out with, Tess, they knew it. They didn't have to relive it again, and if they did, it would be kind of a downer. But it's different when he's talking about it with Ellie because he's teaching her about it. She doesn't know it. She doesn't understand it. So like the coffee thing, and she brings up like Starbucks at one point in the car, and the fact what Bill left him, like the sleeping bags, and another hilarious thing. She's like, this smells good. It's like, well, that would probably be Frank's then. And going back and forth of how Frank was the Tess in the relationship, and Bill was Joel. It's a nice throwback to what we saw in episode 3. Going through the map and looking, where they're going, and again, her learning about what the world is, how it looks, where they're going to go through, and then they start to have this conversation about Tommy, this could have been another kind of throwaway scene. More, okay, here we go again. They're in the car again. Oh my God, let's just get to where we're going. It brings in that realistic feel of like when they're on their own, these conversations happen. She tells him he's wants to know about his brother. And he's like, it's a long story. She's like, we got a long way to go, dude. You better start talking about something. And he's like, how the hell with it? And he starts telling her about it. And we start to learn more about it because we saw Tommy in the beginning. We saw the military thing on the bumper sticker in the beginning. So we just kind of got an inkling and an understanding. And we see when Tommy comes in and saves him at the end of the first episode and the heartbreaking scene. And you knew that he's got experience, but then you just kind of hear little things. Where did he go? He joined the Fireflies. What happened to him? Joel starts to give you more about what happened. That when he was younger, he went in, he wanted to be a hero. He did his thing. He fought in the war. He came back. He kind of lost his place. Joel was after it all broke down, Joel was protecting him. Then he goes and meets Marlene and goes and joins the Fireflies, but then he left. And you're like, oh, he left. Okay, interesting. So all of that and more, and she's like, how do you know we're going to find him? He's like, we're going to find him. And we believe him. We believe him when he says it. And it was just all of that. You just get in that conversation that I think it wasn't filler dialogue. It was important dialogue. And it worked. And this is the heartbreaking thing for me. There's a shot that I'm about to show you guys that is such it's right there, like this hope and this where you could go if things just went your way just a little bit, but they don't. And it's this particular scene that sets it up. Like, whatever happened here, the ambulance crashed in, the truck, chaos ensued on this highway. Like, absolute mayhem happened. And they're right in the middle of it, and it's blocking them off. Joel knows it. He's just they're going to get where they need to get if they can just get past this stupid truck. And he looks through and he sees this. Oh, this shot. Clear. Nothing in the way. Just a full open road, home free. And here we go. And you know it as an audience member. You're like, yeah, because you can't get through there, shit's going to go down. So good luck to you, because you're just looking through and you're like, oh, can he clear it? He's like, nah, get the fuck out of here. Let's try to find a way through. And this is where it all goes down. This is like the juice of the episode, right? Taking you through this town again. The set design on this show is brilliant. I mean, it's not overdone. It looks realistically like it's just a beat down, shitty city now. Like, and it's just 20 years of decay. And it's not overrun with the fungus and all that stuff too. It's just the upkeep isn't there. I mean, look at that shot. That to me is like that looks like just a worn down city that has just not had any love put into it in the last 20 years. And it just couldn't be. And then this setup, this is kind of a throwback to episode 1, by the way, when this guy's like, I'm hurt. And Joel's looking at him. And in his eyes, to me, he kind of explains what this look is down the line, but the way that I read it at first was almost, it looked like he was reliving that moment in the first episode when it's him and Tommy and his daughter, and they're driving through, and he's like, don't stop, just go. And they wind up just going and leaving those people. That's what I thought that was. But then he also tells Ellie later on, he's like, no, I've been in that position where we've been on the other side of it. You got to do what you got to do to survive. And we had to do what those guys did. But they're trying to trick him, and he knows his bullshit is an ambush. And he's like, fuck this, let's get out of here. Put your seatbelt on, let's move. And I love this shot of the sniper on the roof or the staircase, just they're firing at them. Oh, they're going to get through it. And they don't get through it. They just crash right into this thing and shit goes down. They start firing at each other. And this is the difference to me. What I really like about this show is that something I picked up and I noticed on, and they confirmed it again in the after thing, was you have to decide when you're watching this, like as Joel says in that moment that I just told you, as he tells Ellie, look, you have to make choices sometimes that to keep yourself alive and to survive that you maybe aren't proud of. And she asks him, have you killed innocent people? And he doesn't really answer it. And that's kind of what's going on here in this shootout, because these guys that they're firing out with, they don't really seem like bad people necessarily, or evil people. They just seem like people like, who are these people? We're I don't know who they are. They're driving through. Fuck them. Take their stuff, and we don't need new people in here. This is it. Fire on them. And this shot to me just reminds me of the little that I've played of the game so far. It was very video game-esque, hiding behind the car and taking people out. And there's a shot. I don't know if I got it or not, but he makes Ellie kind of crawl through. He's protecting her. She trusts him. She goes through the thing. And it's this shot here where he shoots the guy, and as he shoots the guy, the other guy, yeah, there it is, and he checks on him. And Joel's kind of taking that shot. This reminded me of the game, of some of the stuff that I played, but it also just kind of showed Joel just kind of can go into action, has been here 1,000 times before. Ellie is waiting to see how this is all going to pan out, and Joel's able to take out the other person that walks in, but he's sleeping for a second, and this dude comes in, and this is where it all goes down for Ellie, and kind of is changing, and it's a changer for both Ellie and Joel, because this kid is kind of overpowering Joel, and he's just like, all right, maybe this is it, and the kid got the better of him, and this is where Ellie takes the gun out, she pops him, doesn't kill him, pops him, and then Joel's the one that's got to kind of take him out. But this is such a changing thing for the both of them, because Joel is making a decision at this point. He's like, all right, he's fighting two different things here. He's fighting the thing of being a dad, right? And then he's fighting the thing of being, this is the new Tess for him. This is his partner. This is who, and yes, it's cargo. He says that, but I don't think he believes it anymore, especially after this moment. This is his new partner. And he's forming a bond with this person, because not only from the jokes and the campfire and the drives and all that stuff too, moments like this where she also knew. I mean, I think that she definitely has a relationship. She has a care for Joel. She's starting to form a bond with Joel. There's no doubt about that. But she also knows she's fucked without this guy. What she's got to explain the whole thing to a whole bunch of new people? No, she got to save this guy. Has to. And I love this shot, by the way, of him going, get behind the wall. And she makes the decision, like I think that this, if it's his daughter in a moment like this, showing the complete different comparison between the two characters, that the daughter might be trying to talk him out of it. She didn't try to talk out of shit. She says, fine. Okay, fine. I made the move. I shot the guy in the ass, and now I'm out. And that scene, this scene's pretty heartbreaking too, because the kid he's not talking shit like, oh, you know what, motherfucker, bro. He's scared out of his mind. He's like, no, let's make a deal. You can take my knife. I don't know. He calls for his mom, I think, at one point. He's like, it's where you see where this kid is just fighting. We learn more about his community and just a little bit, but all that was really good. It was heartbreaking. He understood where everybody was coming from. And it was like, this is not a good guy. That's not a good guy. That's not a bad guy. That's just, these are the decisions these people had to make. And do you understand the decisions? And my answer is, yeah, I understood all the decisions, even though some of these decisions suck. You understood it. And then, this is another shot to me, reminds me right out of this game, as now they have to figure out how the hell they're going to get out of this city, and knowing that there's tons of people in the city that they've walked into, and they probably just killed a whole bunch of them. And then we see this lady, and I loved this scene too, because you see her and you're like, okay, is this going to be a friend? And she's just kind of the leader. She's the leader of this compound. Yet again, trying to understand that she's not just some evil lunatic. It seems like, and you guys can tell me for those who played the game, I guess that she's a new character, so I don't necessarily know if you would be able to tell me anyway. But what I read out of this was that she's talking to this doctor, and at one point the doctor and all of them kind of ran this place, and it was overrun, and she kind of took it, and she even said so. That Fredra was running this place at one point. They overran it, and now she's like, hey, well, the way it used to work is like this. How are you feeling now? He's like, I had a gun to my head to do this. Oh, you got a gun in your head now. Where is everybody? What's happening? Tell me. And the guy won't say anything. And this sets up this perfect as we go, and she's now the leader. We learn that she's the leader through this scene. Again, the writing is great. I don't understand this move all the way, but this scene is the one that got me, because here's this kid that we just saw that Joel had to take out. His dad's pretty upset about, losing his son. And then apparently, so this dude who looks like Rick Grimes was the voice of Tommy in the game. I love what they're bringing back a lot of the older characters who played the game, giving him, in this particular role, giving this guy a new role, because he's like kind of the right-hand man. Again, doesn't seem like a bad guy. Just seems like a guy who is doing the job for the leader. And she's like, "Hell, does he need a doctor?" No, we're past the doctor. Oh, we're past the doctor? Okay, well, if we're past the doctor, then I'm going to kill the doctor. Now, I don't know how smart that was, but making a point of showing us that, hey, she can do some shit. She's like, listen, I feel like they're working with somebody else. They're working with our number one enemy. Find them, kill them. And they send everybody out to do them, and shit's going down. I love this shot. And this shot will most likely be my thumbnail, because I love this shot. I love this shot so much. It's one of my favorite shots of the whole show. Him just peering through all these newspapers, and them not, flaunting where they're at. They got to figure out how the fuck to get out of this place. And then they have another great moment. This is what they do throughout this show. They have these big moments that are happening that Joel and Ellie have to get through, and then when they have the time to settle, they have conversations that further their relationship, both for the characters and for us. And they do it here because Joel's like, "Listen, I'm sorry you had to do that. I'm sorry that you." Even though he was kind of reprimanded her a little bit about having the gun, he realized it, and she's like, "You're glad that I did that?" And he's just like, "I just wish you didn't have to do it." And she's like, "I hadn't, not my first time," and all that, and they have this, and they have this moment, like, this is the kind of relationship they're gonna have to have. He's gonna have to teach her, and he's teaching her that grip, teaching her how to use the weapon, and forming more of that list. Little things like this in this type of world that is like a massive moment for the two of them and for us as they grow. And then we find a little bit more about what's happening here. We find out who she's looking for, and this shot as she goes into the attic, and we know, there's a kid involved. Kids, maybe. Turns out a kid, but we don't know. Like, what the hell is the story behind here? Is they're gradually just kind of teasing it up. And then it's kind of sinkhole. Is it going to take out the whole town or whatever it is? I don't know what the whole place is. It's a mess. And dude's like, "Hey man, what are we going to tell the town?" She's like, "Nothing." He's like, "Nothing." He's like, "Nothing." And it's not about that. It's about finding this kid, finding the I guess her enemy number one. And finally, when Joel and Ellie get to the apartment complex, and they're walking up the stairs, and there's this hilarious moment where he's like, "What is it, 54, 56? I'm 56 years old, you little shit." And as they get to, this is kind of going back to the campfire thing. They go down, they have, like, nobody's going to find us here. We'll be chill. And they're in the apartment. He's putting down the glass, and she tells him another joke. This one about the diarrhea. And they get a really good laugh out of it. Can't see anything with these shots. And she wakes up, and then both the two dudes there that were set up in the attic, but they've been camped out of here, and the kid's like, "Shh, don't say shit, buddy." And then that's our episode. But so much went down here, and obviously what it looks like, even if you didn't watch the preview, it seems like these are gonna be allies. We're gonna learn. if we've learned anything about this show, especially this episode, which, by the way, so if you didn't know, the next episode airs on Friday, does not air on Sunday because of Super Bowl, the big game. What dumb advertising! What dumb advertising by the NFL. Don't say the Super Bowl. We're the only ones that can say it. Don't say it. Well, don't you want us to advertise what it's called? Call it the big game. Stupid. I hate it. It's so stupid. Anyway, they have it's airing on Friday. I feel like what will happen with these characters, we're gonna learn more about the town. We're gonna learn more about that woman. Now we'll learn more if we want to root against her, which probably we will. We want to root for her, or we're indifferent. You know, we're going to learn more about it. I probably through their eyes, and even more like if you watch the upcoming trailer for the next episode, it looks like shit's going down. It looks like, it reminds me of like Andor a little bit. It's kind of like a 1-2 arc where and same director for both episodes. But I dug this episode a lot. I think that it sets up. It sets up exactly. It set up a lot with the relationship for sure. It sets up more about the people out there. I like that I don't think we saw one infected person in this entire episode, which worked for me. Didn't need it. You don't need it all the time. It shows that they don't have to rely on it. We're definitely getting a next episode, but we don't need to rely on it in order for it to be an engaging show. Standouts in this one were obviously Pedro Pascal and Bella Ramsey together. They are the juice of the entire show, and you can see why they were both cast. They were fantastic together. Loved that moment in the apartment complex when she tells him the joke, and he's just so fucking stupid. He starts cracking up and laughing, and it's like it brings that part of it humanizes them, and it actually every single person in this episode, like it does it. It's we're so accustomed a lot of times to villains just being the bad guys, and they're just evil now, and it's like, well, why? Why are they making these bad choices? Do they feel like they have to? And like even like the guy who attacks Joel, he didn't seem like a bad guy to me. He seemed like a scared kid. We just automatically assume he's a bad guy because he's shooting at our protagonist. He didn't seem like a bad guy. He just seemed like part of somebody protecting their town. Now you did a deep dive into his history. Who he made some even more bad decisions. I don't know. Maybe he made some good decisions. Maybe he had a chance. Maybe he joined out. He was on that run because they were looking for food. They were looking for equipment. They were looking for stuff. Who knows? But I love that it doesn't make it that black and white. It's not that simple. And that's what I love about this show. Anyway, that's my spoiler review. I really enjoyed it, and I'm looking forward to hearing your thoughts. So I need you to go ahead and comment and tell me what you think of the episode. Let's get into a full conversation about it. If you've played the game and this is another deviation from the game. As I said, I know that they went to Philly in the game. Do you think it took away from it? Do you think it added to it? Are you enjoying it? Are you not enjoying it? Go ahead and leave me your thoughts. I really want to hear what you think. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel. We're almost at 65K. We're going to be putting up a out of the theater reaction tonight of Ant-Man Quantumania. That'll be up tonight. Last but not least, I'm going to be doing a show with John Campea and Greg Alba, live show in person. That'll be on February 19th. If you want to come check it out at Flappers Comedy Club Burbank, the link to get tickets is in the description of this video. There are only around 30 seats left at around 200. So you can get your tickets today. If not, one of these days you'll be able to watch it online. Not this one, but another one, if we ever do it again. Anyway, thanks for joining me here today on the show. I really appreciate you. Yeah, stay tuned. I'll be back for the big thing a little later on today, a longer episode. All right, everybody. Thanks for joining me. It's The Last of Us. Peace out.